Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zen and Fanfics. Today we are featuring What If Deku Was Naruto and Sasuke's Secret Daughter? The story is written by michelous on fanfiction.net. Before we start, please like and subscribe for more content. Now, let's dive into the story. Naruto POV. The last thing I remember was the battle with Sasuke at the valley at the end, and when our attacks clashed there was space warping. I woke up in a haze in a strange room in a bed naked with only sheeting covering me and my body assaulted by weird sensations. I looked around to find what looked like Sasuke's ripped-up outfit on the floor, my outfit in other parts of the floor. After thinking about my situation and thinking about the Toad Sage's books I helped edit, I knew we had SEC and Sasuke left after the deed. I am Naruto Uzumaki, most knuckle-headed female ninja from Konoha. It was not long after gathering my thoughts and getting myself dressed that there was a knock on the door followed by a female voice saying, "I need to talk to you about your current situation." I then said while holding a defensive posture, I asked, "Who are you and where am I?" She replied, "From the note Hermes dropped me, I know you are from another world other than this one. My name is Keiru Sakurazuka, First Campione, ruler of the North American Magic Association, regional head of the San Diego branch of Black Walnut International and owner of this hotel. I normally don't return to Japan, but you are a special case. So, you can relax and come to my office to talk. You may be a decent ninja, but I have hundreds of years of battle experience and powers to match. So come with me, and we can discuss your situation." I opened the door to wee a woman in a pantsuit that looked to be in her 20s, but clearly, she was like Tsunade, only older. She then led me to an office and told me to sit down, then said, "I don't know how you got here or where you came from, but I can tell you, you are on another world known as Earth in a country called Japan. After you ended up in this world, a goddess found you, and the boy you came with then teleported you to this hotel after that she healed you too and stirred your emotions enough to have section. Whoever you connected with was sent back to the place you came from after it was confirmed you were PRGNNT. Since at least one pantheon of gods needs you to have your child, you won't be able to return home until you either give BRTH or the child leaves your WMB another way. But I can help solve that. No matter how much you may want to give BRTH to your child by yourself, it's barely safe for a small girl like you to give BRTH. I knew I wasn't in a state of mind to give BRTH to or raise a child by myself, and I also didn't want to wait for 9 months to try and go after Sasuke. I barely knew what any of it entailed outside of what I read. I then replied with, "I know I am not ready for this, so I will take whatever help you can give Miss Keiru." She then said, "Wonderful. I will check my contacts list and should have a woman to transfer your child to by month's end. You can use your room and the facilities in this hotel freely until that time." She then gave me a card and said, "We have 5 restaurants on the property, a training facility, you can use a library you can read in. Show this card to people at desks and they will help you as needed. Be aware until your baby is transferred to another woman, you will only be able to pick from a special menu only." I then nodded to agree, and as woman also gave me a key and said, "Since you agreed, you won't be able to leave the property until the proper time comes." After about a week of figuring out the hotel/prison I signed up to stay in, the time came to meet the surrogate that would take on my baby, and Keiru told me, "Your child will physically take after Inko for the most part, but will have yours and your partner's DNA, and I can also arrange to have photos of the baby sent to you across worlds as well." I replied, "I would like that, and I would like the chance to meet my son or daughter at some point as well." It was then I met Inko Midoriya and said to her, "Please take care of my child." She replied, "I will raise him or her like my own." Then Keiru said, "There will be other special care that we will get into at a later time." Then she looked at me and said, "If there's anything special that will need to be covered with your child, get back to me later." With that, the child was transferred, and I then woke up at where the battle ended like no time passed at all. I then wondered if Sasuke was aware, and how he managed to get around naked. After that I reported everything that happened back to Tsunade, and she told me, "Only Jiraiya, Kakashi, and I know what happened. If anybody else learns you had a child with possible Konoha secrets gets out of the village, they won't be happy. Also show any photos to me and the 2 others only." It was a month later that I went on a training journey with Jiraiya, and 9 months after that one of the summoned toads popped in with an envelope showing mine and Sasuke's child not long after BRTH, and my teacher said, "She has blue eyes with Uchiha BLD, that's odd. But it's been so long since a Senju clan member and a Uchiha clan member had a child together, so we will have to see. What SEC is the child? I then looked at the paper and it said, the baby was female and will inherit the surrogate mother's hair color, and I would get another update in a few months and will only be checked by authorized BWI-approved doctors. The Toad Sage then said, with the next update, I will send notes on training and medical care for chakra-empowered children. It was through the training I got regular updates and photos until finally after 3 years I was finished and got to show Tsunade the fruits of my training as well as all the photos. I had to explain about the hair color being inherited from the woman that carried izuku, and that she would start training in her chakra coils soon enough. Not long after that, I finally ran into Sasuke again and wanted with all my heart to use our child to get him back. But all the events soon lead to a war and meeting both my father and the Sage of the Sixth Paths. I found out after the battle was done that my father and the Sage went to my child to prepare to pass the other half of the QB on to her, as she would need it for her future fate. After that I learned young Izuku was much like me in some ways, but idolized a famous hero named All Might. With that I decided to allow the family that raised my child to have the books my mentor wrote, as well as my life story to sell in their world. I also learned she was a savior, but it would take many years and many trials before they would know how strong she would be. It wasn't long after that I married the boy that confessed to me Hinata Hyuga, and Sasuke married Sakura Haruno. I did tell Sasuke that we had a child induced by magic, and that she was in another world. But by that time we moved on from each other and had children with our own partners. Izuku POV. As I grew up, I wondered about all the special doctors in training, and even the weird medical procedure I had when I was 4. I was told I didn't have the traditional quirk factor, but did have the savior factor. But I learned all from that I would likely not be able to use the quirk I did have until I was in my teens, and I wouldn't gain use of my abilities as a savior until I ran into a specific trigger. I planned to go to UA even if I didn't get a quirk in time and transfer to the hero course later, but would determine when it happened. I did have a vague idea from all the medical tests my quirk would likely be related to my eyes. One thing I found weird was the fact that my mother and I moved from an apartment to a house when I was 5 years old. It was when during my time in middle school, I started to figure out my destiny was strong indeed as I first got to run into the hero I most admired, All Might, the #1 hero. I first got to see him in action. It was the year I turned 5 that I met my friend, a boy named Katsuki Bakugo, and from the very moment, I could tell we had a connection, and with us both being saviors, we likely met in another life. But how I couldn't tell only that Bakugo would get red when he looked at me from time to time. After that, he would do something mean to me. After one time being bullied, I ran into a slime quirk user that was a demi-metaphysical. But it was saved by All Might and completely did the fangirl act around her. It was as the large man jumped away from me, I suddenly saw the perfect angle to latch on and ride with his jump. But when we landed on top of a building, I asked him, is it possible for a savior without a quirk to become a hero? But after I asked that, I learned All Might's secret, that he could no longer stay in his full power form forever. The hero soon told me he had many injuries in his long career as a hero and could barely stay in his full power form for a long time. But the man soon told me until bloom as a savior or find out you are a late bloomer, it would be impossible. I knew I would be stuck waiting for it to bloom. It wasn't much longer that I found out Katsuki got caught by the slime guy that nearly caught me, and even with his savior ability triggered, he couldn't use his sword against said monster, and his quirk really didn't work either. With the heroes that did show up unable to do much to save him, I knew I had to try, and I soon ran to my friend as my eyes showed me the way to dodge and what to throw to get the slime off my childhood friend. It was as all hope seemed lost. All Might came and blew the slime guy off both my friend and I, and in the same punch cleared all the hazards. It wasn't much later that I got to look over at myself in a mirror and noticed I had a ring around the pupil of each eye with a comma, like an extra pupil, and then started to wonder if this was my quirk. It was before I could check further. The hero of peace came out of the shadows to thank me and then ask, would you like to inherit my quirk? Naruto POV. It was on my first day as Hokage that one of the frogs teleported into my office and with a regular report and said, Izuku developed the first tomo of Sharingan in each eye, and they turned from green to blue. I then asked, why not red, and has she developed any of the special abilities? The frog then said, from what the note detailed, it seems like just expanded vision and increased perception. I think she barely understands her eyes. She doesn't tend to go to UA, and pretty much has a free pass due to being blessed by the goddess of love Aphrodite. She also met All Might, and will likely replace the former lead candidate, inherit his quirk. I then said, update me on what happens as her powers develop and school schedule when she gets in, but don't let them give her the free pass. The frog then said okay, as it teleported away. Izuku POV. As the hero of peace asked me about inheriting his quirk, I just stared in shock as he said, my quirk isn't super strength, it's a torch that can be passed on. Many others have had it before me, and if you want you can be the next to gain it. Its true name is One for All, and it grows as it's passed along. I then asked, why do I deserve to take that mantle? He replied, when a quirkless girl jumped into the fire when no one else would, that prove you were worthy. After that, my mentor told me to come to a beach each day before and after school to help clean up trash and said, you need to build up your body by cleaning up and helping the locals by cleaning up this part of the beach. There's also a third possible reason I can tell you later. You need to build yourself up to be ready in 10 months for UA. I have a plan to help you build yourself up. It was then he looked me over and said, I used all the data from your school physicals to come up with this plan, and there is something new I noticed. Your eyes turn from green to blue, and you appear to have an extra pupil in each eye. I then picked up a mirror and checked my eyes to see what he said was true, and I remembered the doctor saying I could be a late bloomer with my quirk. I then said I may be starting to develop a quirk. That's all I know. With that, I started the plan and moved each piece of trash from the beach to a truck that my new mentor had set up to move things to the dump. He said to me, things of value will be processed before it gets thrown away and recycled or repurposed. It was 9 months into the process. We dug out an old car that looked to be over 200 years old, and All Might said, this is exactly what I was looking for. It's something that was owned by founders of Black Walnut, and the major inspirations of was lost in the ocean after a major event that happened before the emergence of quirks. I don't know all the details myself, but if you get in, the vice principal of UA may tell you the story of him. It was a month later, and through one final push I completed the cleaning, and after my mentor showed me all my progress, I also noticed I had gained a third pupil, and it was starting to form what looked like a ring. It was as I checked myself over, All Might pulled a hair out of his head and said, each this, and you will gain my quirk. You only have a few more hours till the exam. When I didn't want to eat the hair, he said, a piece of my hair is better than the bloody kiss I gained this quirk from. My mentor bit the side of her cheek to give the power to me. After that, I simply ate the hair and hoped I would get the power in time. On the way to the test, I met a brown-haired girl that saved me from falling as I passed out by using her quirk. After that, I ran into Bakugo, and he just stared at me like he hadn't seen me in a long time. I knew I had to get a new BR, so just guessed he noticed my bigger bust. After that, he all got into a large room for the written exam, and I knew I would pass that with ease. But my real worry was passing the practical exam, and I knew I would likely need both my quirk and my savior abilities to pass. One would help, but both would make it easier. For the exam, we would be split into 5 different battle zones to be tested by defeating robots with different score values, with 3 having score values and 1 with being worth no points. The proctor of the exam said when questioned, it's an obstacle with no reason to defeat. But part of me figured it may have been part of a secret level of the exam we weren't told, like it was meant to test our savior powers. After that, I was ready to enter the area for testing and hoped I popped off in time to complete the exam. While waiting for the exam, I met the nice brown-haired girl that helped me, but was stopped from talking to her by the loud boy with glasses. It wasn't long after that the gate opened and the test started. But as I thought of my new quirk, other kept killing the robots I needed to hit. It wasn't much longer that the giant 0-point robot came out, and everyone left me while it came. With 2 minutes left, and the brown-haired girl trapped, I knew I had to do something to help her. I released my quirk at that time, and used it to leap into the air to attack the robot. My eyes seemed to tell me to the right moment, and I then felt I needed to gather my prana in my hand. I then made an incomplete sword out of partial memories of someone that had to be me defeating a giant made of dirt. Then I felt my body start to mend as the adrenaline started to wear off, and all the pain from it as I started to drop. I knew I broke my legs and one arm in the attack. After that, the brown-haired girl in turn saved me with her quirk. But as she did, time ran out, and I worried I failed the test. After that, an old woman came out to help mend the hurt. I soon learned her name was Recovery Girl, and she said to me, "It seems part of your quirk is repairing your body pretty quickly, but I can help as well." She then kissed me as the rest of my body healed. It was a few weeks later of waiting and training until a letter arrived from UA saying I passed the exam on 2 fronts. Then came a hologram message of All Might saying, "You both passed the exam with rescue points and passed the secret part of the exam by pulling on your savior abilities. I will also be part of the UA teaching staff. I also learned you would have gotten in via recommendation as well, but you will have to vice principal about. You are the only one in the exam that managed to draw out their savior powers, even partially. So, count yourself among the level of hero that your past life was." It was the next night that All Might called me to meet him and said, "I never knew that you were supposed to get a free pass into UA. That is something the vice principal wanted to tell you personally." I told him about the damage the quirk did to my body, and he said back, "It will take time for you to get used to your quirk. You are just going to have to train to fully used to your quirk." The next morning came my first day in UA, and it felt like my mom wanted to say something, but only said have a nice day. When I got to school and found the class, the tall boy in glasses spoke to me about how I passed the exam and how I was able to draw on my savior abilities without training. At the same time, Bakugo looked at me in a mix of anger and blushing like he knew something that I didn't but didn't want to talk with me about it. It wasn't long after that we met our teacher as he came out of a sleeping bag. He started by telling us to change into gym uniforms and meet him on the training field. He was going to give us a special quirk test with the lowest score supposedly being kicked out of school. Everyone got to show off their quirks to show what our current limits were, but as I was about to use mine with its full arm breaking power, the teacher showed his quirk to cancel out that power as I had to find a different way. In the end, I figured out to use my quirk on just my finger and had a flash of memory of a breeze mixed in. I broke my finger but was able to pass to the test and stay in as the teacher said, "Everyone passed the test." Then the teacher looked at me and said, "Now that you passed, time to meet with the vice principal. She has something to talk to you about." He then gave me the directions to her office and said, "At worst, you wouldn't have been transferred to another class until you got more control of your power, and the rest will be explained soon enough. All I can say is you are a special case." I then went to the place where I was told, and a woman that only looked a little older than me in her face said, "Lock the door and we can talk." I did as she said. Then the woman told me to sit down in her chair and said, "Young lady, my name is Artoria Amiya, and the reason you don't have a quirk is because Inko Midoriya isn't your real mother. She was just a surrogate that raised you and carried you. Your real parents are from another world without quirks. Now I will tell you about the quirks you have." Izuku POV. Miss Avalon said to me, "Your real parents aren't from this world, but ended up getting together under the influence of a goddess. You inherited your eyes mostly from your father and your vitality from your mother. Then finally your advanced healing comes from the spirit fox moved from your grandfather into you. It mostly just speeds up your healing for now, but in time you could gain more advanced abilities in each skill, and will get a teacher from your parents' world. I haven't been told all the details, but your mother is in a leadership role in the country she was born in." After that, the woman pulled out current photos of a woman with straight blonde hair, blue eyes, with 3 whisker-like marks on each side of her face. Then she pulled out a photo of a man with long black hair, black eyes, and bang covering the side of his face. I then looked at each and asked, "Why do I have green hair like Inko?" The woman replied with, "That was part of the surrogate process. You inherited some traits from the woman that carried you for the time of PRG and NCY. The process was magical other than science. On other details, your mother likely has a trainer plan for you at some point in the year, so expect that to happen." I then replied, "The clinic had me to do regular exercises that I think was for chakra." With that, she replied, "You are part of the way on the path then. Good luck with classes over the next few days. You will have a mix of hero, savior, and general education classes in the savior path." I then asked, "Would I be able to enter dungeons like a hunter?" She just replied, "That is 2nd year and 3rd year stuff. But if anything happens dungeon-wise, and you or another savior in training is close, you could assist any hunters if you wish to and share in their spoils." After that, I went home with Tenya and Ochako as I mulled over what I learned, and that I would likely get more training later on. Then the next day came the general education classes and general savior and monster knowledge classes. We learned basic courses as well about the different types of saviors. All of us could use ancestral arts, but some could use light arts, aka weapon skills and body medication skills, while others could use dark arts, aka magical skills. Part of our training would be mixing our arts with our quirks in the perfect combination of each. We would start to learn about each in our coming combat class today about forcefully activating our savior skills in combat. It was then All Might burst in the room with his red outfit out, and then he told us about our hero outfits and told us where to meet him, and that our regular savior teacher along with a special observer would meet us at the training area. When in Check My Outfit, I learned Inko submitted the design without asking me about my quirk. But I could work with a very All Might-like design and say it was meant to be a fox much like the spirit that is in one sealed within me. Then when I contacted All Might, he said to me, I have been told a new suit is already on order for you by the vice principal, but it will have to wait until the coming tests confirm what type of savior you are as well. White art and dark art users have different needs in terms of suits. After that, we went to field and saw two men with the hero of peace, one with brown hair and one with black hair, with the man darker-haired man in gold suit and the lighter a red suit. The hero said, the man in gold is Yusuke Urameshi and will be your regular savior combat teacher, while the other is the American hero Drake, aka Issei Hadu, and he will be observing Yule for this test. Each student will be paired in teams of 2 and split between hero and villains, with the villains having to guard a fake bomb, while the heroes have to disarm it. We expect you to use your quirks and mainly active your savior abilities. I was paired with Ochako against Katsuki and Tenya. My partner revealed she was a dark magic type that could use wind magic, while I wasn't completely sure of the type of art I could use. As I prepared to battle, my childhood friend would blush as he saw my suit. I knew he could use white arts and a sword, and I just hoped I could MSTR my skills and win this battle. It wasn't long since I made it into the building and was prepared to fight. Katsuki POV. As I prepared to battle Izuku, I remembered my past, and when I first woke up to my savior abilities. I remembered in the past that we were brother and sister with me, the younger sister, and Izuku, the older brother. We were as many rivals as possible to stop the waves of monsters than just siblings. But at that time my brother Flaga claimed the holy sword and even killed a dragon, but after that battle he changed. He grew much stronger. It was as if the dragon made him strong enough to even kill giants. But seeing Izuku in this life made me not sure she was the powerful older brother I knew in that time. I couldn't acknowledge a girl that weak could be the powerful Flaga. But in this battle the girl showed her skill. She showed but much speed she had and her wits in battle. She was hiding very well, like she was waiting for something. I knew she had some kind of explosive strength, but what I really wanted was to see her as Flaga. But what made me mad about the girl was that she could save me while being powerless. I think my old friend was hoping that Ochako could win the battle for their team, but I just wanted to defeat Izuku. I wanted to prove she was a useless Deku. It was when she stood before me and stared. I saw her eyes look different. I could only guess that it had to be her quick and knew I needed to fire my most powerful attack. But I knew I couldn't kill her, but disabling a limb could help me. But somehow, she dodged perfectly and took only a glancing explosive attack. It was after that the girl got up and said, I remember everything. It was then she materialized the holy sword Salatiga and started to show off her savior power and rained down blows on me. In turn, I was forced to use my own holy sword combined with my explosion power just to keep up. But I knew she was winning this battle. I knew she was stronger than me right now. It was as I was about to use another explosion attack that Izuku suddenly used both her quick and then revealed in her other hand she was making a dark art spell, as she said, Level 1 Dark Art, Brine Burst. At the same time, she released her punch on the building to help Ochako. It was then I figured what her spell did, as the hero team was declared the winner, and she passed out. She covered me in salt and pretty much prevented the use of my quirk until I could at least shower off and clean my uniform. Yusuke POV. It was after the battle was done. I dragged Issei and All Might into a more private room and said, Did you know you scouted and empowered the ancient dragon? But the large hero replied as he deflated, I don't even know what the ancient dragon is. I barely know what a savior is, but from the reactions of the other students I can tell using both magic weapon and a spell isn't normal among saviors. I replied, She is the only one, a savior with 2 past incarnations, and that I quirk shows she was clearly a late bloomer. It was then Issei said, You better calm down that Bakugo kid before he blows a gasket. After that, the hero of peace reinflated and ran out to get his student, as Issei said to me. She clearly has a dragon sacred gear. Drake told me her dragon is much like him and Albion, but much stronger and more primal. I could say the two incarnations each ran into a different aspect of this dragon in their own pruned worlds. If she masters all of the power she has, she will likely be stronger than two dragon emperors combined. She is also clearly much smarter than I am, and if patterns hold true, will have her own harem of guys. With that, I sighed in disgusted and said, I hope she is more like Big Brother Shiro than you are. Then my friend said, I wouldn't be shocked if whatever world he reincarnated to Shiro has another harem. After that, we watched each other fights, and the only one that really stood out to us was Shido Todoroki. He was a dark arts user whose quirk perfectly matched with power, both use ice magic with his ice quirk. But Issei said to me he mostly just uses his quirk, but said quirk has too many downsides for extended usage. If he faced a metaphysical of any kind, he would have to use his dark arts since most monsters can avoid quirks. So still have room to grow. But I can see he is likely member 2 of Izuku's harem. It was after that I asked the boy, have you heard anything about the gathering of powered people as of late? He replied, not enough to get a large group involved, but there has been someone recruiting out of work metahumans, demigods, and awakened beings for a few weeks. I don't know what they are doing, but all the heroes are on high alert. Izuku POV. It was a few hours after the battle. I woke up in the medical room as Recovery Girl was fussing over my condition and said that girl needs to learn to control herself and better be thankful she heals so fast. AKO will have to come and help with recovering her mana soon enough. I knew with that I still have room to grow, and knew soon enough I would have to learn how to use my quirk without breaking my body in the process. When I got back to class, I was showered with praise and everybody wondered how I used both kinds of arts. But most were told by the savior teacher Riko that she would go over it tomorrow after I could attend class. It was after that I ran into Katsuki, and I couldn't tell if the boy wanted to hug me, kiss me, or kill me. But I could clearly tell he wasn't happy about my ancient dragon status even if I didn't know what it meant. I did most of that with instinct alone and wasn't sure if I could do it again. But in some ways my friend felt like he was family or maybe a lover from another life. Izuku POV. The next day class came, and we learned about the differences between hunters and saviors. The major thing being the fact that most hunters for the most had to get their magical weapons and armor from other places, while saviors would conjure said weapons and armor from their past memories if they were a light arts user. Dark arts users may be able to summon wands or staves, but normally would need to get special robes if they wanted to enhance their magical abilities. After that came consoling on how each class member did in the battle class we had the other day. Most of the class had quick in and out meetings with special lessons coming over the next few weeks and months, and said that they met with both the combat teacher and the twin teachers about saviors and hunters. But when it came to me, I entered the room to find All Might as well, and the teacher Yusuke Urameshi said, "It's time for us to tell you what the ancient dragon means. Now please close the door so All Might can shrink down." As I did, my mentor went to his skeletal form, and the teacher asked me, "What do you know about the first hero, the man that fought before the new age of heroes formally began?" I replied, "Not much, I can say only a little more than most people. I know he used swords and had special armor, and his name was Shiro." As I heard this, my mentor just looked like he was listening to what I said. Then the band-aid-clad teacher said to me, "Professor Urameshi, my twin, and I all knew him as a person. His name was Shiro Amiya, and he helped gift the now 7 most gifted heroes under 18. On his death, several relics known as the Divine Gears were released. Some came to anchor spaces known as special dungeons, while others were born in special saviors' souls. Not all these gears have revealed themselves, and not even Shiro himself was sure how many divine gears he made. Your peers in the group we call the Supernovas are Momoyo Kawakami from Japan. She is a savior a year older than you, known as the Goddess of War. She joined several other hunters and saviors to form a guild guided by her boyfriend. She mostly strengthens her body, but also can use a massive sword. Next is also from Japan, Keed Hanju aka Maple. She is a hunter that on finding her gear, gained all the skills from an alternate in-game avatar of herself. She focuses completely on defense and is also known as the Great Wall. She formed a guild known as Maple Tree that supports her pure tank style. Next is Cora Bearheart, a dark arts using savior that has been trained in many styles of martial arts and combines dark arts with martial arts to fight. She is from a native tribe in Canada. Next is Arthur Lewin from England, and he is a savior known as the Azuro of Time. Not much is known about him, just he has time-based abilities. Then from Mexico is Roberto Reyes, and he is a savior with demon lineage and is known as the Ghost Rider. Then finally is Rex Rhodes from South Africa, and is a hunter that awoke after discovering a divine gear under the sea, and is known as Aegis. Again, not much is known about him. You will unite with all 6 of them at this Year I Expo in a few months. It will be your big reveal to the world after the UA Sports Festival. When it comes closer to the event, you will be prepared, and All Might will be your SCRT to the event. Nothing about your current status as the Ancient Dragon has been revealed yet, but after it is your life will change even further. It was the next school day, and we were bombarded by reporters asking about All Might and a savior known as the Ancient Dragon. Each student was attacked for interviews until Night Eyes saved us. After that, he talked about the battle test the other day and commented on the fact I broke my arm again. He also made sure to tell the class to keep my status as the Ancient Dragon a secret under being kicked out of school with the statement, "People more powerful want this kind of news announced a later date." After that, he had us choose a class representative. I knew it didn't matter if I was class rep due to my status and the fact I likely had special trainers waiting for me. But in the end, Momo and I won the vote for class rep. I think my special status made the difference. After that came lunch, and Ochako and I ate with Tenya and learned about the fact that his family ran a multi-generational hero agency, but he was the first member of his family to be a savior. After that, the press attacked again and tried to learn about All Might and the Ancient Dragon, and if All Might was the Ancient Dragon. As the alarm went off, I made sure to eat my food quickly before we were evacuated. After that, we had to deal with a panic in the hall until Tenya came up with an idea to stop the panic. After he got the situation under control, and handed him the class rep title as I wondered who let the press pass the gate. After that, we learned our next training session would be off campus and using our quick and savior abilities to save civilians, and we would take a bus to an off-campus site. I would use my gym uniform for the event over my hero outfit due to my former outfit getting damaged in the last test. But the good news was that I would get a new hero suit that better fits my new quirk. On the bus, we finally got the chance to talk about our quirks and savior skills. We soon arrived at the facility to meet the Hero 13 and learn we would be training in an abandoned amusement park. This one would simulate any disaster. I also learned that my mentor wouldn't be helped with the training from a text due to overusing his quirk in the morning. So, Professor Urameshi would be arriving soon to help. After that, the space-suited hero gave us a lecture about our quirks and savior abilities. Then, as she finished up, a gate opened, and out came heteromorph villains mixed with metaphysicals. So, we soon knew it wasn't a dungeon break. We then knew we would have to fight. A man with a strange hand covering his face that had to be the leader of the group was clearly asking for All Might as well as the Ancient Dragon, and somehow knew he was supposed to be here with us. The battle started with our teacher showing just how useful his quirk was and how good he was in combat. As he took out the villains one by one, it was as he did and kept the villains distracted. A villain that looked to be made of darkness seemed to swallow each of as he meant to scatter each student around the park with different villains and metaphysicals. I soon found myself in the water zone and attacked by a person that was a mix of dolphin and human, only to be saved by Tsuyu, and then as I left the metaphysical with a deep sword gash. She then put Mineta and I onto the boat in the middle of the shipwreck zone. After that, the 3 of us planned what to do next. But it was more Tsuyu and I planning while Mineta was freaking out and staring at our bodies. It was then a man in golden armor rose from the water and walked onto and said, "My name is Chrysor, and I am what's called as a Tartarus-born metaphysical, or one that died and rose from the Greek hell." Then a giant marine monster rose next to him, and the man said, "This is Dagon, and he will join me in killing you 2 ladies and baby man along with our minions, that is." After that, I said to my team, "We need to stop this guy once and for all. Both those 2 are S-class metaphysicals that have caused issues on the lower Japanese islands." With that, I figured out what my teammates could be and learned Tsuyu was like a frog and could use dark arts and knew a water spell, but it wasn't very strong, while Mineta could throw sticky ball and use a spear light arts weapon. I knew that it likely meant I would have to do most of the work. But to our luck, the metaphysicals didn't know our quirk. I then came up with a plan to lock the villains down with Mineta's ball, and then get out of the water. We then used a mix of the ball, Tsuyu and my strength to stick all the minions in the water, and a super punch to get out. And then after that I was flooded with memories of battle much like this. I was a sorcerer fighting to protect the kingdom I formed against a navy of ships I didn't know. Then the dark arts spell Cositus came to my mind as the two generals were about to attack. I then said out loud, I had a memory of my other past life and know how to win this. Keep them busy while I cast this and stay out of my way. The two then did their best to keep the two at bay while I cast the spell and made it rain ice on the shipwreck zone. And with that, I knew generals and all the minions were dead. But I also knew I couldn't spell another like that anytime soon. I then dropped to my knees as the other two stared in awe. Ochako POV. I knew I had some feelings for Izuku, but with the level of fame she was set to reach was beyond me. I also knew that top-level hunters and savior had very special status in which they could take on more than one spouse, and thought it would be nice to be one of those spouses. But right now, I am thinking of getting out of this situation. We needed to hold this shadow guy in place and get Tenya out to get some help. It was in that battle to escape. We saw a massive spell rain down ice, and with that we were all sure it was Izuku, and that she was really the ancient dragon. Shoto POV. After I cleaned up a bunch of villains and metaphysicals, I noticed a huge ice fall, and with that confirmed that she was Shu Sora in a past life with me as Sarasha, well as whatever hero she was in Bakugo's past life. I remembered the armies of fairies Izuku as Shu killed to get me out of the SLV market, and when they declared war on his kingdom. I knew who she was from the burning feeling on my pec that was now a birthmark in the shape of the brand I had as a SLV. I remembered him making said kingdom a wasteland to defend it and restoring the land after the armies were defeated. I also remember a new art to help kills more waves of monsters. I also knew my father would want me to marry her as soon as possible. If she was the ancient dragon, it would be more like joining whatever HRM of men and women she collected. After I finished my battle, I went to help others on the way back to the entrance with the first few. I helped with the group being Momo, but as before I could do anything, they took out their own waves of monsters and metaphysicals. But after an attack, Kaminari would need some help getting back, due to the effect of his quirk. Izuku POV. My team and I arrived near the entrance to see our teacher fighting the lead villain, as we got to see how both his quirk and the villain quirk worked, and that said the villain had a rot-based quirk as well as Savior Dagger. But the teacher showed he could still hold his own with a layer of skin missing, but had to be in massive pain and fueled only by pure adrenaline, and may not last much longer. Ochako POV. As I pondered what I heard about Izuku letting me join a possible HRM she may form, I was watching 13 lose to the portal using villain at the last time Tenya was trying to make his escape and had to avoid the now free villain. It was as my friend was about to get caught, the others did their stuff to help and figured out he had a physical body that could be grappled. Katsuki POV. As I won my battle with the help of my new spiky friend, I noticed ice fall and felt that it was from the other side of Izuku's powers. The same side that forced me to shower repeatedly to help all that salt off me. That made me wonder why that incarnation learned a spell like that, and if it was used to help or harm. I had a feeling the other incarnation was much like my brother, but different needs and harder enemies to face. I also knew that I may not be the only man or even woman in Izuku's heart, that she may have many other lovers as well as I, and knew I would have to try and not get jealous. Ochako POV. After we figured that out, all of the other students with me teamed up to hold him long enough so that Tenya could get help, and with that we knew it shouldn't be long until help arrives. I just hope we could survive before it was too late. Izuku POV. It wasn't long before the leader villain called out his monstrous minion to aid him and start to destroy our teacher. With how drained I was from the ice spell, we were forced to watch as our teacher was being crushed. But then the shadow user arrived and revealed we may have reinforcements arriving soon. But as the villain leader knew he may be done soon, he came and tried to use his power to kill Tsuyu, but our teacher saved her just in time. I then took the chance to try and save her with my punch, only for the large minion to block me my punch and reveal it had some kind of trait to stop my hit. With that, I knew things could go bad soon enough. But as things looked grim, my mentor arrived to save us. I knew the villain likely had the ability to take my mentor's hits. As he arrived, the hero said, "Ida told me about the villains and is getting more help soon enough." The remaining human villains were soon taken out by All Might, but even I knew with the quirk passed on, I wasn't sure the hero of peace could take out the metaphysical known as Nomu. I had a feeling that even when the hero won, he would be cutting down his super time in the absolute best situation, but likely die in the worst case. As the battle carried on, the portal villain tried to trap All Might, and I was about to join the battle until both Bakugo and Shoto arrived, and I somehow felt connections to both boys. It was then that I felt like I knew both boys in the past, like I may have loved each other at one time. I was fairly sure it had to do with my two past lives. As I starred with love in my eyes, the two boys figured out how to trap the villain we learned was called Kirojiri. But it was soon enough Nomu escaped and regrew his limbs, and with that I knew we would need savior arts to make the final kill. It wasn't long after that the three villains regrouped and tried to get us, but my mentor made the save. After that I knew the hero didn't have long to fight. But then All Might decided to go all out and take the two leaders out of the battle, and then did a furious combination of attacks to bring Nomu down. After that I shot a magic blast at it to make the final kill. With that we knew the battle was pretty much over. I knew All Might wouldn't have long in his super form, so the rest of us prepared to take down the two remaining villains. After that my mentor did his best to stall, but in the end the villains made their move, and I was forced to see how my eyes could help me fight back. But before I needed to do anything, the teachers in Tenya arrived with Mr. Urameshi making a shot from his finger to let All Might escape and shrink down. Not long after that, the two leaders made their escape. The pro-heroes cleaned up the rest of the minions, while the hunter teachers cleared the rest of the metaphysicals. After that I started to heal and was taken in a private ambulance with Miss Avalon, and she said to me, "Congratulations, you are now a very wealthy girl." I looked up and asked, "What do you mean?" She replied with, "The hunter or savior that makes the kill gets claim on everything with the metaphysicals they kill, and the dolphin men and deep ones hold lots of materials that can be harvested to make weapons and armor. But the big money is in Dagon's parts can be made into even higher grade gear. But the big money is in Chrysor. He left imperial gold armor and weapons behind that don't need processing. Then finally there's the huge bounties on Dagon and Chrysor. The payout for those two is around 500 billion yen." After hearing all that I passed out and knew my life was about to change even more. Izuku POV. It was the next day, and school was closed to give the students a break. It was when I woke up a frog appeared in my room with a message saying nothing about the ring's leaders of the group that attacked can be discovered. But in the next few days you have a school athletic event. Your performance at the event will determine the training you require. I will be sending my retired ninja to get footage for a few ninjas on my council, and I to watch and determine the next path of your ninja training. After said evaluation, another retired ninja will be sent to train you. Also, your younger brother and sisters will be watching this event. Love, your mother and Hokage of Konoha Naruto Uzumaki. P.S. I would like to meet you in person, but my work keeps me way too busy. With that I started to internally freak out from learning my BRTH mother would not only be watching me, but evaluating how I did in the UA games. I was happy to learn more about what these strange new eyes of mine could fully do, but wasn't sure about what the ninja would teach me. From what I know, the people from Black Walnut gave me the most basic ninja training. I would also have the pressure from being the so-called ancient dragon also weighed on me, and the further pressure that put on me. But I also wondered how my training would change from what I was doing to that of a ninja. But when classes resumed, it was all a buzz about what All Might did, as well as my freezing of the ice spell I did, and how I had come back for at some point to undo it or melt the ice. When our teacher showed up, he looked like a mummy and said the UA Sports Festival was about to begin. Then my cowardly short classmate asked about canceling the games, but was told it wasn't possible at this danger level. After that, we learned the reason for the festival and how big it was and how it would lead to us getting scouted by hero agencies. I wasn't too worried about getting scouted due to the fact with the money my mom's books made in this world. I was set to start my own agency when I was old enough. I also wondered how my classmates would feel about this event going out to another world. I wasn't sure how far out exactly, but knew at least the village my mom worked at would see it. It was after class ended, I was called to the office and asked to summon a frog, and met Mr. Urameshi. Then told to give said frog a device that would supposedly allow people in the other world to watch the broadcast of the UA games. He said, the people at Black Walnut said it should be viewable on a village level at least. After that I returned to class as we got out for lunch and asked Ochako, why do you want to be a hero exactly? She told Tenya and I it's for the money to support my family and give my parents an easy life. It was after that. All Might pulled me away to have lunch and talk in private. There he told me, fighting that metaphysical further limited my time in super mode. I can only last about an hour now. I then said sorry, but he wasn't really bothered at this point. After that he asked me about planning the games, and I told him, I recently learned my BRTH mother and half-siblings will be watching the games. He replied, I read in your file that your parents are from another world, and that's why you don't have a natural quirk factor. Are they the ones you inherited those special eyes from? I replied, those are from my dad. I don't know much about my mom or her gifts except she heals really fast. After that he talked to me about controlling my various gifts and how I would use them and how I could use them in the games. I learned there would be a barrier but likely not strong enough for me to go all out with my savior powers, and that I would have to figure out how to use my eyes, my inherited quirk, and whatever divine blessing I had to try and win the best I could and show the world I could take the mantle of All Might. Naruto POV. It wasn't that much later after I sent the letter to my daughter that she replied back with a device to watch the UA games in real time. But there wouldn't be very much coverage for the area that could receive the broadcast, but the people from the same group that helped transfer Izuku to Inko had a message on the device saying, if you want any updates on this device, please give me data to your agent that will train. It was enough for me to show Izuku's sisters, my husband, Sakura, her brother, a council to watch, and myself, and I knew it would be fun to see teens beat the snot out of each other. Izuku POV. The next day after class, and the other classes came to check us out. We were already famous for fighting off villains, and I was further famous for being the ancient dragon. The first one to talk to out loud was a boy with blue hair. He formally declared war and mentioned he wasn't enough to make it into the hero course. Even Class 1 became, but the major difference between our classes was the number of Savior and Hunter candidates in our class. We knew students from the other hero course and from the other paths at UA could enter the games as well, but didn't have as much chances as we would. It was after that exchange that we were given 2 weeks for extra training for the games. My major focus was on trying to use my special eyes and seeing what they could do exactly. I mostly tested how they helped me react to various things. I tried to use chakra a little to improve my body more to handle my quirk, but couldn't get the amount right. It was the day of the games that Shoto came to call me out and declare he would defeat me. But I planned to win him over and add him to the boys in my possible HRM. I was at least considering it. There was just something about Shoto that felt like somebody I should know. I was thinking he could have been a wife or lover from my time as the weather mage, but wasn't completely sure. But Shoto's challenge felt like he wanted to defeat me for reasons he couldn't understand either. But I knew in my soul that we would fight and learn how we knew each other in the past. When we started to walk out and see the crowds, I spotted a man in all black including dark glasses and guessed he may have been a ninja just to watch on me. It was after we got out Bakugo had to do a speech as being the first-year rep, and I just hoped he would say anything to embarrass our class or make us more enemies. He ended up making enemies, but not in his normal style. After that, the first protective spun a wheel, and we all learned the first event would be an obstacle race. We could do just about anything other than use savior spells or savior weapons on humans in this race, or leave the main course. I knew that would make things hard for me to win since I didn't have full control of my quirk. It was on the way to the course. We learned the tunnel was our first trial, and we had to find a way to get through and on the main course. The one that figured out how to break through first was Shoto, and if I didn't have my special eyes and call out my savior sword, I would have been caught. I managed to use that to escape the ice, but not as fast as those with burster quirks. Our next test was making it through Shoto's ice field, and the next trial in the form of a giant robot. I let Shoto take it out with ice, but he still left it as an obstacle for the rest of us. But as we cleared the ice field, more bots blocked our path, and I had to figure out how to use my blade to take them out. But the ones that took out the next batch of robots were the major damage dealers of Class 1A, and they opened the way for the others. I knew what to do, and used my blade to slash through the robots, and also had a robot piece to use a makeshift shield and weapon to save mana. The other members of my class used their quirks and experience to clear the way and make good strides as well. But Shoto was in the biggest lead, and I was barely making it. It was soon enough that the main pack made it to the last obstacle in the form of a minefield, and soon enough Katsuki faced Shoto for the lead. But I soon came up with a trick to make huge progress and used several mines to launch myself on the robot piece, then used one final trick to boost myself and take both of my main target boys out of the race enough for me to win. Naruto POV. As the first event ended, I talked to the other members of my council and asked, "What did you all think of the first event?" Many of the council members said, "Those gave us ideas for the next Chunin exams." Then my former teacher said, "I can say your daughter has promise and has been using that Sharingan of hers well so far. I can say she doesn't know the full extent of its use, but with the uses she could figure out on her own, she's doing well. I can also say she gets that crazy streak from you." I replied to that, "I am not sure I would have used the mines to do that. She has the genius of Sasuke, but is willing to work hard like I did." The older ninja then said, "I am working on a training menu for her, but I will need to see how she does in the other events. A race is just one thing, and she could do better in other trials that she can use her quirk. I really need to see how she used it in combat to finish my training menu. The coming up with new tricks on the fly is a thing I can use for sure." I was Sakura that said to me, "Your daughter seems to have eyes for the platinum blonde boy and the boy with split hair, and even that brown hair girl seems to like her. And did you know she could marry both or more due to her special status?" I thought about and wondered if my daughter would truly shoot for a HRM of her own. Izuku POV. With the two boys behind me, I could say after everything went through, most of my class made it to round 2, with the biggest surprise being my Netta on Momo's back. There were 42 that advanced to the next round, and the next event would be a cavalry battle with each place having different point values, and my getting first place made me the biggest target. Naruto POV. I then asked the rest of the council, "Now do you think my daughter has the diplomacy and leadership to make it through the next round?" The old ninja Kakashi replied with, "If your daughter excels in the next event, Izuku will surpass you how you were at that age." I replied with, "I couldn't be prouder if she does. Her sisters and brother are watching at my house, and I hope she proves a level for them to strive to reach." Izuku POV. The event would be about getting headbands, and the first part of the battle would be forming teams of up to 4 members. I watched each form their teams, and most picked teams with their homeroom classes, and I knew it would be best to do the same. I was starting to worry until Ochako chose me. I tried to get Tenya, but found out he joined Shoto's team. But I did manage to get a girl from the support course named Mei and soon saw she had special eyes much like mine. Her main quirk was eyes to magnify, but what she really offered was gadgets to help in the battle. I didn't know about my divine blessing, but I had one that was likely related to a goddess. After that, I picked my final team member, as I heard the members of Class 1 be wanting to defeat us. It was around then I figured my last team member, and it was the bird-headed Tokoyami. He is a weapon user savior or someone that had a darkness-based quirk, but said quirk would give us extra reach. I knew the best plan to avoid as much as possible and try to keep people off of my team. I had to do my best to avoid the others while the tech was failing. But Katsuki was really after me. But the nastiest team was the Class 1B main team. But once his headband was taken, the boys' fire was lit. Then, as in dodged, I ran into Shoto and knew that would be my major clash. I also knew I was mostly out of the tech that Mei had. As we met Shoto's team, I knew that the major issue would be the lightning user Kaminari over the others, and that his quirk was best against the dark shadow. As we clashed, I learned that the bragging boy in Clash 1B had the ability to copy, and the other team for his class backed him up. With my eyes, I was able to see the flame hero Endeavor watching the match and the best ways to dodge. But I still couldn't fully use my eyes. I felt there were much more to them that just expanded vision. It was soon enough mine and Shoto's team got into one last clash. I also was able to see Katsuki and working on taking down the 1B teams and using his team and their tricks to make it. The Class B team was more willing to settle than aim for the top. As I clashed with Shoto, I charged my arm to dodge an attack and get a headband, but the real winner on our team was Dark Shadow and being able to get the points needed for our team to make it to the next round. But we barely made it, and I let out tears of joy. I also could tell Shoto wasn't happy with his victory and may have even been charmed by my tears. After that, I finally met Shoto in the tunnel and prepared to talk with him about something, and I wondered if he was going to ask me a date or hit me. I was eager to learn which one and tried all my charm on him just in case. Naruto POV. It was after that event that there would be another intermission to set up for the final round of the event. So, the council talked, and many were sure a chariot battle would be good for future Chunin exams. They also said my daughter was at least as smart as her father in terms of pure smarts, but a flaw was her lack of fighting style besides supercharging her limbs. But she got praise for not completely shattering her arm. The other major praise was using her Sharingan on pure instinct alone, and that she had the churka to keep it going for extended periods. I knew my daughter would need both a check on the QB I know was in her, as well as BRTH CNTRL seals. I was sure the blessing of the goddess of love was making her irresistible to both sexes. I figured I might have to send both Tsunade and Kakashi, but would have to see the one-on-one fights to really know. Izuku POV. I wanted to go to lunch, but Shoto wanted to talk and wasn't happy he had to use his fire power, and that he didn't like it. He mentioned I felt like All Might and asked if I was his child. I replied, my BRTH mother is more a surrogate that had me and raised me after my real mom couldn't. I think my BRTH father gave me my eyes. After that he told me about his father, who was Endeavor the #2 hero, and he needed to defeat me due to his dad. Shoto then told me how his father wanted to take down my mentor, and that he was a product of quirk marriage. Like how his mother was forced to marry his father to make the perfect child. I knew I was a similar case, but my BRTH was arranged by a goddess. As I thought that, the boy told me how his mom burned his face due to a dislike between father and mother. Then he claimed to want to defeat me with his ice powers alone. But I swore I would win to him as well, and I also wanted to make him part of whatever HRM I was going to start at well. I got back to the stadium after a massive lunch to find out Mineta convinced a few of the girls in our class into cheerleader outfits and to do a mini cheer show, and that Momo even made one for me. I knew I would need to save the uniform for a later more fun situation. For that to work, I would need to meet my new trainers. It was after that we learned the final round would be one-on-one fights and that we would draw lots to decide who would fight. Before the drawing, our tail classmate and a member of Class 2B dropped out and revealed their team leader was controlling them somehow, and I knew that would be a person to avoid. The two chosen were from Team Tetsu. The two were the leader and namesake of the team and vine-haired girl. My fight would be first, and against the boy that seemingly mind-controlled a few different people in the chariot battle. Then after him, I would have to Shoto. But I knew first I would have to deal with my opponent Shinso, but before that I would have to wait for the ring to be built. After that my mentor wished me luck, and I went to face my purple-haired opponent and nearly right away got caught in his trap and seemed to end up under his control. It was then I began to hear the sound of steps through water in my head and wonder what was happening. Izuku POV. I then stood trapped waiting for the boy to issue a command. He then lectured me and told me to walk out of the ring. As I was walking, I went into my mind space and was in a space full of water. Then a booming male voice said to me, "Those that came over from that hair wanted to break your finger to snap you out, but I have a more fun way. You answered the question, but I didn't. Now you will get to watch as I take this guy out." I was in a room with a chair and a TV, and then the TV turned on to see what I saw before I blacked out. The camera turned for me to view the mind imstar, and then I saw my hand in front of my eyes with a red glow. I then slashed in front of me, and 5 claw marks appeared on Shingo, and he then was pushed out of the ring and then planted likely from the pain. As the voice said, "You can have the reins now. Soon enough I will be part of your soul, much the other touch-bearers will soon be as well. I can't say what will happen after that, but the true source of your power will be found in a distant place." After that I woke up to find myself declared the winner, and Shingo woke up to get praise for his quirk as I checked my hand to minor burns as the voice I heard laughed and said, "I guess you haven't fully adapted to my power." After that I went to the infirmary to get my burns treated and talked to my mentor, and he asked, "What did you do? I am sure that's not part of the quirk I passed you." I replied, "I am not sure, but I heard a voice that mentioned torchbearers and that they may have been fusing into me. I am not sure I will be able to pass this quirk down to another person. I think it has something to do with the ancient dragon." My mentor looked at me with shock and said, "I don't know anything about saviors, but even among saviors exist in the top level of those." It was as I prepared for the next match, A broadcast shown on the TV screen and said the 8th supernova has appeared and new S-rank hunter hero appeared in China. Lan Ling the commoner. He will join with his other 7 comrades among and the other top 8 competitors in each grade at the iExpo very soon. After that came the match to decide my opponent, and it was Shoto versus Zero, and while it looked like the tape boy was winning, Shoto soon overpowered him to win the match. As the boy was covered in ice, and I had the feeling something triggered the split-haired boy's rage. After that, Shoto defrosted Zero free, as I noticed a sad look on his face. Naruto POV. As I looked over the first 2 fights, I worried that my daughter may have issues controlling her half of Kurama, but from what I could tell, Kurama was more in control. I also knew to formally check her out, I would need to send Hanabi with Kakashi. I knew my sister-in-law knew about seals to help female ninja not get PRGNNT, so she would be perfect to help with those kinds of things. I could also tell the girl likely figured out her Sharingan on dumb luck and skill alone and would need further training with it from my former mentor. He even said from seeing her fight, I may be fun to teach a mix of you two with much more kindness. Also, I am sure your daughter likely that split-haired boy as well, and he has the anger issues Sasuke used to have. I couldn't argue with that, and the face he needs more control over his powers. But I would have to see how he did against my daughter to further see what he could do. We then watched the 3rd match, and it was an electric boy against a girl with vine-like green hair. Said boy made the mistake of hitting on his opponent, and when he tried a shock attack, the girl grounded it with vines, and then took him out of the battle. I also saw my daughter in the stands taking notes on both fighters. The next match was the engine boy against the support class girl, and somehow, he was allowed support gear, and soon enough we learned it was just for the girl to show her technology off, and then leave the match after showing enough of it off. It was pretty much just 10 minutes of her showing tech off, and then dropping out of the match. The next fight was with a boy that could fire lasers with a girl that controlled acid. It was a match of long range against close range. The pink acid girl showed she could use her acid to skate on the ground and dodge the blast with ease, as she also stated she knew her opponent had limits to his energy blast and was good at hand-to-hand combat as well. After that was the girl that could create items against a birdie head boy that could use his shadow in combat, and Shikamaru commented on how much more with his shadow than the entire Nara clan combined, as he won by ringing out his opponent, as the girl felt hollow for only focusing on defense. After that, there was a clash of 2 people that could harden their bodies but in slightly different ways. One could turn his skin into living metal, while the other could turn his skin harder like bone. The fight between the 2 ended up dragging out, and having to be fighter giving an inch nor being able to defend each other's hits, and the fight ended in a draw to be due to a double knockout. It would be decided in a different way later after the 2 others that my daughter clearly was considering for her possible HRM would fight. I was guessing she may pick all 3, and likely more due to the fact she would have a greedy draconic nature. Izuku POV. I saw my friend off and even tried to give her my tricks. One thing I knew was we could use our savior skills, and that would make my salt dark arts skill impossible. I wasn't sure how my friend could win this fight. I knew my eyes could help, and maybe the power I used in my first fight may help, but I wasn't in control to use it. As the fight began, I knew if Ochako could get in close she could win. But she was coming up with plenty of good dodges even if she couldn't be close enough to win. The real thing I noticed was the crowd turning on Katsuki for his aggressiveness. But Ochako was fighting hard. But the real one that saved my rival and past life sister from the crowd was our teacher Aizawa stopped the man that started the outcry. I could tell Ochako was starting to breathe hard, but soon enough the brown-haired girl revealed her next trick in using the rocks around the area to fight with. But even that didn't work. After the next exchange, the girl passed out from pure strain. She ended up losing but gaining Katsuki's respect. After the fight, my explosive possible lover confronted me about Ochako's battle plan, and I said it was all her plan. I would have just salted you again, or just used my fox claw on you. That made him run off in a huff as he said, that girl was nearly as strong as your big sister, but I will still win in the final against you. After that, the fight between the 2 hardeners was decided by an arm wrestling match in which my classmate managed to win. So, he would face Katsuki in the next round as the 2 became friends. I knew soon enough I would have to face Shoto, but before I did, I met Endeavor and he pretty told me, if you prove strong enough, I will let you marry my son. But I said, as a supernova, I have the right to marry who I want and as many partners as I want. You don't get to decide, that Shoto does. He then said to me as I walked out, my Shoto will surpass you, ancient dragon, no matter what. I want you to come at him hard to prove he isn't just the SLV to a wizard about to face an evil queen. With that, I had a flash of a man that had to be me, and I saved a girl from a SLV auction to make her my queen. I now knew that Shoto was likely the wife of the dark arts side of the ancient dragon. Part of me wished I could use dark arts, so I didn't have to break my body to win this. Shoto POV. I could tell from our first clash in the second round that Izuku was my former love, Shu Sora, and I was once Sarasha. I remembered all of the things that connected us, and that at one point we were both slaves. That was until I used a strange Fong to free my love from chains that bound and sealed him, and with that, he became something more. I knew I was falling in love with her, but I couldn't let destiny control me. Much like the fact I couldn't let my father control me. I knew using his fire would make me worse. At the same time, I remembered my mother as well as my older brother that died. I knew I would have to win, and wasn't sure about the power she used in the last fight. In our first class, I fired ice and the girl broke her finger to blow away my first attack. I knew she was starting to push me to my limits. I soon got in close and managed to catch the girl in an ice attack. But as I thought I won, she unleashed a full power punch to blow me away. But I could tell she was breaking as well. I knew I was closing in on my limit as well. But as I let loose the next attack, she changed. It was like armored claws covered her hands, and an armored tail was on her back, and what looked like fox ears were on her head. She started to look more powerful and more dangerous than ever. Yusuke POV. As I sat in the box with All Might, Issei, Nizu, and Itoria, the blonde said, of course she would manifest her sacred gear. But Issei said it's not as powerful as she could be. The fox took over as the ego instead of the pure dragon. Drake told me she will either be sleeping or missing, and she would have even more power with it. The girl is incomplete, but still very powerful. She would likely get more from a red gate with the purest essence of the dragon. I then asked, so, she had lots of insane power. What's the catch? Issei replied, time, and she's only human for now. That won't last forever. Soon enough she will become more draconic. I can say both are near their limits, and this battle won't last much longer. I then noticed as Izuku began to taunt her possible lover to use his fire powers and she slashed through ice attack and ice attack with her claws. She even managed to bait the scared boy and get in a few claw strikes. Naruto POV. I then watched as my daughter was pushing beyond her limits. The Kurama said, that kid is sure crazier than you are. Whatever that armor is, it's both healing her and holding her together, but she won't last much longer. She will pass out if she either takes more damage or the adrenaline runs out. But her possible mate is clearly hitting his limits as well. As I saw the boy, I could tell he was in just as much emotional pain as physical pain. Then soon enough he began to make the fire my daughter was asking for. As they prepared for the final clash, my daughter has a twisted smile on her face. The final clash caused an explosion, and when the dust cleared, both passed out, but my daughter was out of the ring, and thus, she got lost in the battle. I then immediately called both Kakashi and Hanabi to prepare them to go to the other world and give them everything they would need for the trip. Then I called in Konohamaru, who was the agent I sent to watch her, and said, set up the agency, I need you to immediately, and talk with All Might about having his mentor join up to train my daughter. Izuku POV. I woke in the infirmary, and Recovery Girl said, well, that healing factor ramped up the point I didn't have to do much. But the next match was delayed because of all the damage you caused. I knew with all the hits that Shoto took he wouldn't be able to do as much in the next round. After that my mentor came in and said, to think the ancient dragon came with a sacred gear. But before he could say more, my friends came to check on me and were amazed by how much I healed. After that, I left with them to see Tenya's battle as Ochako asked, how are your arms? I replied, still sore and stiff, and I should use them much. But I should be back in fighting shape in a few days. But it's going to take more time to learn to MSTR all those new tricks I learned. As we talked, Tenya used his legs to instantly force the plant girl out of the ring. Then Fumikage used his quirk to force Mina out just as fast. As the battles rushed by, I began to think of new ways to use my quirk and figure out how to summon my sacred gear. I also could tell there was more to my eyes than I knew either. I knew I had so much learned and hoped I could do it soon. One thing I knew about saviors is they have been showing up worldwide for about 40 years. But about 18 years ago, the savior population exploded. Further within the year I was born, those numbers went up even more. I think it was related to something coming, but I couldn't be sure. I also knew not all saviors were on the good side, and some even went bad. Gates, an awakened and metaphysical being, were about the same. People guessed it meant the signs of something very coming, but nobody was sure. It was while I was deep in thought, the battle between Katsuki and was clashing with Ijiro, and my childhood friend was struggling a little. It was due to the fact that explosions weren't as effective against super hard skin. But soon enough, the hardening boy hit his limits, and his explosive opponent was able to take him out with an explosive barrage. With that came the next to last match of the round, and it was Shoto against Tenya. I could tell my friend was struggling with the ice attacks, and Shoto still wasn't willing to use his fire, but still was able to win. After that came the final match of the third round, and it was Katsuki against my shadowy former teammate, and he ended that fight even faster than the last. As that battle ended, Tenya got a call, and I could tell it wasn't very good news. But I wasn't sure exactly how bad news it was. I could tell he had a dark look on his face, but that was about it. It was then I knew the finals would be my two former lovers from my different past lives, and part of it made me tingle and even get excited. Would have liked to see both fight at their highest levels, but Shoto didn't seem the same after my battle with him. Shoto started with an ice burst, but Katsuki was able to overcome everything attack he fired off. But as the battle went on, Endeavor tried to get Shoto to use his fire. But the double-element MSTR didn't seem to want to use his fire. He wasn't ready, but soon enough I shouted out, and that pushed out the firepower. But before he could attack, Shoto faulted as what looked like trauma over his past hit and made him lose the match. Katsuki clearly wasn't happy winning that way, but soon passed out after being declared the winner. I could only guess after the adrenaline left his body, the explosive boy was also done. After that, Fumikage won the third-place match, and for the winner's ceremony Katsuki had to be tied up over his rage from the results. It was before that Tenya had to leave after saying, "My brother, who was not a savior or an awakened being, was attacked by one of the two and overpowered. I am sure one of the two saved him, but I will know more later." It was then All Might gave the medals, and then after Shoto talked to my mentor, he got a hug. Then finally Katsuki was still raging over what he felt was an incomplete win. After that, the next 2 days would be for the second and third year classes, with even less saviors among those, but 3 saviors stood out in that the finals, but our class wasn't able to see the battles. So, we really didn't get to see them at the highest level. After that, we would get 2 more days to rest and recover. Then Tenya called me and said, "My brother is alive thanks to your fellow Supernova Maple." She was able to force the hero killer Stain away and provide first aid. But his hero career is pretty much over. After that, Shoto called me and asked, "Do you want to go on a date? We need to talk about our past life together, and I need to talk with someone about a few things. I am not sure when I will be free to go on a date, but I really need to talk with you." Izuku POV. It was on my way to school. I learned that my reputation as a future hero was already growing, and many thought I would win if it wasn't for the ring out. I had new powers. I wasn't sure of myself. On the way in, I met Tenya and learned his brother was alive at the very least. But after checking my phone, I learned a savior that went dark has been attacking and killing heroes. After that, our teacher came in and revealed he was healed up, as he revealed one of the other school healers made sure he was up to full health. After that, we learned class today would be formally picking our hero names. After that, we learned our picking of hero names was related to the number of offers we received, with the top winners getting the most offers and others getting less. I was lucky to get one offer from Hidden Leaf Hero Agency under a few different heroes that were ninja-styled that Kamui Woods used to be part of. But even the others would get to in turn with pro heroes. I was sure that Black Walnut set up my internship. From what I understood, they had heavy investment in heroes tied to them. It was then Midnight came in to help with our name picking, and she would give our naming the final approval. I went up first and declared my hero's name as Jade Fox and said, I was inspired by one of the first-generation hero, the Silver Fox Yoko Kurama. The older hero replied with, "Few students know of the classics. Very good choice. It goes well with your suit and that strange form you took in the battle. How did you know about him?" Then Aizawa spoke up and said, "Izuku nearly got in via Black Walnut recommendation. I have heard they have ties to many of the early heroes and educate potential heroes in the classics." After that, each of the others went up and showed their hero named Ijiro with another classic hero, Red Riot. The ones that put up no effort were Shoto and Katsuki. But many of my other friends came up with their own names. Tenya came up with his brother's name, due to the fact said brother had to retire due to injuries. All Might POV. It was when I was in the office, I looked over my email and saw the offer for Izuku and noticed both my mentor Gran Torino joined Hidden Leaf Hero Agency and that the same Hidden Leaf also made an offer to Izuku. From what I knew about the girl, her parents were both otherworlders and she didn't have a quirk factor until I gave her mine. I also knew Hidden Leaf was an agency that had been running for about 10 years and mostly gave hero opportunities to Outworlders, with many of its heroes being Outworlders, and it was funded by the rights to a popular manga and anime. Izuku POV. One thing I hoped Katsuki would learn in his internship was more control. I heard my parents grew up in a place known as Hidden Leaf and pretty much expected this agency to be able to teach me more about them. It was a little the naming. My mentor called me to his office and said, "I need you to do your internship with Hidden Leaf. Someone I need you to meet is there." I then replied to him, "I am pretty sure this agency is related to my BRTH parents, and I need to know about myself. So, I have already decided to work with them. Also, some of my classmates tried to work with them, but were denied." Then my mentor said to me, "This agency recently scouted a former teacher at UA, and someone that knew my mentor. He knows about the quirk we both held." After that, I looked up the savior that hurt Tenya's brother and learned his name was Stain, and he was known for killing heroes and was likely an A-class treat minimum. But to one of the heroes, he killed being a savior of the same level. I also heard rumors he used to be a vigilante until the lockdown incident a year ago that broke him. It was the day we would head out and learned he would bring out hero suit with us, but weren't allowed to use them unless working with our hero mentors. At the same time we left, I worried about Tenya and knew he had a chakram savior weapon. I knew it was from India and hard to use. When I got to the agency, I noticed a leaf symbol with a spiral on it, and I went inside to notice two men on the ground with red in them. It was then I said at the top of my voice, "They are dead." But as I said that, both got up and woman with clouded eyes came out and said to the men, "Stop being idiots and get cleaned up for our guest. She is Lady Hokage's first daughter." Then she looked at me and said, "I am your Aunt Hanabi Hyuga, and I need you to come with me for a few medical checks." She then led me into a room and said as we walked, "It more that I am your stepfather's younger sister. Your parents had a tryst, but weren't the best couple. Your father was a fugitive for many years until Naruto helped him mend his ways. Both lost arms in that battle." As we got into the room, Hanabi said, "I will first need you to STRP down to your underwear and have to give you a tattoo that will be removed later." I then took off my uniform and forgot I had on my premium All Might sports underwear. But the older woman had no idea what it meant. As she said, "The tattoo will be a magical CNTRCP-TV device. Your mom made it a policy that Kunoichi have it until they want to marry at the very least." Then she pointed out a spot and said, "Stand there and stand still." With the veins on her face showed more, and she said, "I can tell the fox is more fusing with a part of you, but I must check on you later." After that, she gave me a tattoo on my stomach and said, "The ink is special, and it won't be visual in public spaces." After that, I was told to change into my hero suit and prepare to be trained. Kakashi and Gran Torino would train me in both my inherited quirk as well as my eyes. Hanabi said they're called the Sharingan, and your set is the first that come in blue. After that, I trained by trying to fight the older man while the masked man said, "Let me see you try and track him with your eyes." I was able to predict the older man's movements, but my body wasn't able to fully keep up, and soon enough he defeated me. Then Gran Torino said, "I'm going to get us some food. Kakashi, it's your turn to train the girl." It was then the masked man began and asked me, "What do you know about your eyes?" I replied in the name I knew and how it expanded my vision. He replied with, "Your eyes can do much more than that. I know I used to have a set of my own. By sensing inner energies in people like spirit energy, prana, and mana, you can predict movement. Also, You can use hypnotic effects and even cast illusions as well. You also need to think about that quirk of yours a different way. I don't know much about All Might besides a little video footage, but he doesn't just do charge attacks, and I have rarely seen footage of him breaking bones. It was after that Gran Torino got back and had me cook some food, but it ended up too cold, and with that I figured to use smaller amounts of my power. As Kakashi said, I was told to have some chakra training. Try mixing that with your one for all power. I'm going to start by having you jump on walls, and later on we will get into more advanced applications of the idea. I really didn't make much progress until I thought of the microwave, and then I figured out I need to distribute the power of both my quirk and chakra mix throughout my body. Then I figured out I would need to move while using the quirk. Then Kakashi said, also focus the chakra to change to your eyes to Sharingan mode at the same time, and as we clashed I was slowly figuring out his patterns and just about hit him. After that Kakashi said, from using your Sharingan you likely started to pick up on his patterns. Now time for you to learn a new trick. I'm going to teach you jutsu your mother mastered and won many a battle with, but it wasn't until she was your age that learned its greatest benefit. Now do the hand signs I am showing you and say, Shadow Clone Jutsu. I did as he said, and with those 5 copies of me appeared. He then said they should last for 1 hit each. Now have the original fight him, and the others watch with Sharingan active. It was then we fought again, and Kakashi said, now dispel the clones and wait. After doing what he said again, I felt a bunch of information hit my brain and knew the battle from even more angles. Then Kakashi asked, can you change into that form you used against Shoto? I replied, I think the fox gave me that form, but I was in control. Then the masked king said, okay, now I will test your element's affinity. With that he brought out some paper, and it did a lot of strange things, and Gran Torino asked, what does that mean? Kakashi answered, it means she has a bunch of strange element affinities, but they are tied to her dark arts skills. After that we kept training, as the old man said, tomorrow we will patrol the city for villains. All Might POV. It was while my successor was training, I talked to my police officer friend, and he revealed that Noma was the next stage in the monsters that attacked Naruto a few years ago. All the data points to the fact that villain number 6 was the creation of your great enemy or his collaborator. We couldn't get much on them due to the fact 6 and his proto-Noma all blew up. But your successor may need to be ready sooner rather than later. Tenya POV. I joined the hero. I joined to try and find and hope to get revenge on Stain. But I am not sure I am strong enough. I am about speed and short range, while he is a mid-range fighter that has other weapons that are all savior blades. I hoped I could defeat this guy on my own, but wasn't sure. I couldn't even be sure of his quirk. But I needed to win. I needed to stop this man from killing again. But it wasn't long into our night patrol that the city went into chaos. There were numerous reports of metaphysicals attacking, and I was worried a gate may have gone dungeon break earlier than it should have. It was when I was looking for said gate that I found my prey, and with the pro-hero native in his grasp, and I soon learned I was outmatched. But at the very last moment Izuku arrived to make a save. Izuku POV. As I was heading to battle against Stain, words hit my mind. Our actions don't just affect us, sometimes they affect others. They affect our family members and those that see us as heroes. Sometimes they take all that the wrong way, and it makes things worse. Sometimes those people inspire others to make things better or worse. I wasn't sure where this came from, but I had a feeling this was about to affect me in more than one way. If I had to guess, it was something I said in one of my 2 past lives. I had first had to make it through a bunch of new Nomu, and with that figured these were some kind of mass-produced villains. There were a lot more than just the one, and each likely had different powers. I finally figured out that Tenya had made contact with Stain by the hero he was working with saying his name. The big issue was there were a lot of Nomu, and with that I figured the hand-covered villain was very close. As I knew Tenya was likely in combat with Stain, I figured to send out a GSP signal to get any of my classmates in the area to help before I fought the man myself. I wasn't sure how to fully use the Eye of Hypnosis, and wasn't sure if I could copy skills from other saviors. I ended up finding Stain about to make a killing blow, and stopped in just in time using S smash attack. But the man got up, and clearly started to shift to light arts. Not long after into the battle, I sent out the signal for help as Tenya was caught by Stain's quirk. It involved cutting with his sword to paralyze. But I combined smash attacks with my sword to make up the differences, It turned out this man had a mix of his savoir blade and mundane blades to fight with. But the man still managed to draw BLD with a knife as I learned how his quirk worked, and then tried to use a dark art to fight back. But soon enough I learned Stain's savior skill was a dark arts negator, but soon enough Shoto came to help, and I said, "Use your quirk, his sword negates dark arts. I know your dark arts have less drawbacks." But in turn I saw him as his fire side and said, "You encourage me to use both sides. I am sure we can defeat him together." Shoto was able to fight the man as he had the speed and a slash that could break through the fire and ice attacks of Shoto. But it was then I learned Stain's quirk had a weakness as he started to say, "I wouldn't have had to do this if you completed the task. I had to kill them and kept killing them over and over. Now I have to kill the fake heroes." I figured the paralyze of the quirk had limits, and those may be passed on BLD type. He then said, "You two were able to finish the job." As he stared at Shoto and I, with that I discovered Stain likely encountered us or our deeds in his past life. We likely didn't complete a task that he wanted us to complete. Shoto POV. It was as Stain talked about izuku, and I like he knew us. I began to have flashes to my past life, and more on how the wizard saved me and taught me. Then I started to have flashes about who the wizard saved me from. It was strange beings. I then put things together, and that Shu Sora started a rebellion against those strange beings that failed and killed the two of us. Then whoever Stain was taking the failed rebellion and became a killer. It was then I remembered what brought me in the path of the hero killer, and that I needed to win. I needed to stop this man. It was as we fought, I saw Izuku's eyes change, and then Tenya got back up and said, "I remember how to fight a guy like this and that I can change my weapons. I need to not fight for vengeance and save native. I need to be a true hero for my brother." It was then his bladed knuckle shifted to a bladed boot, and he saved me from a nearly lethal attack while putting out my greatest weakness. It was as the fight carried on and Izuku was down, she said, "Tenya, is there an issue with your leg? If there is, Shoto should be able to help fix it." I then did what she said as both went on the attack and hit Stain in two different places at the same time. I was sure that likely took the hero killer out of the battle. After that we dragged, disarmed Stain, and secured him with ice cuffs. It was a spell I just figured out how to do. Then we found a hardware store and found a few bungee cords to tie the man up with. After that we ran into an old man named Gran Torino, and then other heroes arrived to see that we had Stain caught. It was after that a bunch of watches beeped, and a hero looked at it and said, "We have a gate opening near, and it seems to be a rank at the very least." Then more Nomu appeared and began to swarm. Stain even got out and helped by taking out of the creatures. I could then see Stain clearly had no nose, as he unleashed killing intent that froze us all. But it was then he passed out standing up. It was after that an ambulance picked Shoto and I up to take the two of us to the hospital. But things seemed weird as there wasn't an EMT in the back with us. Then I heard over a radio, in the voice of the man that attacked the USJ, "Get them into the blue gate before it becomes inaccessible." It was then the ambulance sped up as we tried to get out. But by the time we did, I knew it was too late. I looked up to the sky to see rings in it, and then heard the voice of Gran Torino and a new female voice that said, "It looks like we are in 1600s Japan." Then the old man and a girl our age came to check on us and asked, "How are the two of you?" I replied, "I should be up to full health in about an hour." And Shoto said, "I didn't take that much damage but should be okay." The old man said, "Do either of you have a way to store medical supplies?" I then rose my hand and said, "I have a trick to store items." Then Gran Torino said, "Your aunt with the weird eyes taught you something like that. Well, seal away as many medical supplies as you can. This is my first blue gate, and the little lady here's second blue gate." Tenya POV. While in the hospital getting patched up, I asked a nurse where my classmates were, and soon learned from my hero mentor instead they got forced into a blue gate. But the good news is Gran Torino and the Great Wall Maple also went in with them. But from what I know, blue gates are worlds cut off from time and space, with time passing differently in the world of the blue gates. With that, I knew I needed to hope and pray the four would get out alive. Katsuki POV. I finally got a break and found out Izuku sent an SOS, and then got a second message that said SOS from Tenya with the message, "Izuku and Shoto are trapped inside a blue gate. Part of me was worried about the girl I loved but wasn't ready to admit it, but the other part was jealous since said girl was the reincarnation of the person she loved in her other life, and maybe went further than siblings could go. Ochako POV. When my training class was done, I checked my phone and learned Izuku and Shoto were trapped in a blur gate. I knew I was starting to have feelings for the girl, but the pain in my heart of knowing she was both trapped in a blue gate, and with a boy she clearly had some connection to. It was after that, a message hit my phone that said, a new savior has awoken their memories during the recent incident. She was male before the incident, but due to an encounter with a metaphysical and her savior awakening. She will be testing into the savior course soon. Her power in dealing with a creature that came out of a forced dungeon break after the blue gate. She will be ranking into the supernovas. But given time with her recent gender transition to fully adjust. Kakashi POV. After Izuku went through the blue gate, I was recalled back to make my report. Hanabi would stay and help with any other training after the Hokage's oldest daughter returns. Naruto then said to me, I am sure you made a bingo book on some of Izuku's classmates. I replied, I'm working on it so far, but haven't seen enough to really make progress. I plan to complete it after term exams and the summer training camp. I have even been asked to protect her in exam for a coming student testing to join her class down the line. I then opened the book and said, here's what I have so far. Katsuki Bakugo. Quirk. Explosion. Savior type. Light arts user swords. Past life. Sarasha Flaga. His savior abilities aren't the strongest, but his quirk makes up for it. He is likely in love with Izuku but too stubborn to admit it. Shoto Todoroki. Quirk. Fire and ice. Savior type dark arts with strong affinity to ice. Past life. Elmina, Witch of the Land of the Dead. He has higher magical output than his ice side quirk and appears to me slightly more affectionate than Izuku, but is too busy dealing with mental scars to full accept her. Tenya Ida. Quirk. Engine. Savior type. Light arts user shifting blade, but seems to have yet to fully manifest. Past life. He isn't fully sure. Yet, he moves at high speed and helps to get through the recent battle with Izuku's help. He is already friends and a possible romantic partner for Izuku. Ochako Uraraka. Quirk. Gravity. Savior type. Dark arts. She leans to concealment magic that can change temperature on battlefields or survive in extreme temperatures. Past life. Not fully sure. She has strong control over her quirk, but not much control over her savior magic. To fully use it, she likely needs long-range weapon. She is friends with Izuku, and likely in love with her as well. Izuku Midoriya. Uzumaki. Quirk. One for all. Regeneration. Sharingan. Fox Drive. Unknown Divine Blessing. Savior type. Dark arts with every chakra element type locked behind magic types and light arts holy sword. Salatiga. She has recently started to develop all of her powers and will likely grow her powers in the Blue Gate. Also, Izuku Ochako and Shoto have learned a few spells in their Magecraft class that I don't know about. Naruto then said, I am partly surprised how many both boys and girls are trying to get with my daughter. The fact she is allowed to marry them all shows how much the country of Japan wants to keep her around. I know she has the same tomboy charm that I used to and likely attracts both males and females. But I want to test all the possible suitors myself. But that seal makes me happy that none of the boys will get her PRGNNT until she wants to have children. Izuku POV. It wasn't long for our exploration that a pack of monsters attacked us. The problem wasn't that they were strong, just there were a lot of them, and they had weapons that soon ripped our already damaged Shoto and my uniforms to shreds. But Maple and Gran Torino were able to dodge, but wouldn't last long. But to our luck, we ended up saved from the massive monsters by two samurai that seemed to be from different eras. After that, I had the chance to change into the cheerleader uniform that my aunt armored mostly as a joke, but at least. After that we learned the two were servants in something called the Waxing Moon Holy Grail War, and with 3 masters out 3 new ones could join. But before he could even tell us his name, an armored servant known rider appeared, and she was tough as iron. The samurai that was the sir said, I can tell this servant off but Saber and I need as much help as you can summon. My team of 4 was about to get to shelter, and I asked Maple and The old man, "Can either of you use magic?" The old man replied, "I retired before both saviors showed up for the gates started to open, and I was just informed about old magic by Black Walnut a year ago." Maple then replied, "I can use magic, but only the kind awakened beings can." Shoto replied to that you can use magecraft just the same. Izuku and I had one awakened being from the general education take the modern magecraft class. With that I showed her the hero summoning ritual, and we each summoned a servant. I got a young adult in Greek armor that was Archer. Shoto summoned a woman a strange Chinese outfit with seemingly mismatched body parts of the assassin class, and Maple summoned a man with wing of the caster class. With the three servants and Maple, Shoto, and working together, and finally able to use magic, we were able to drive the servant away. After that we managed to talk with the MSTR, and learn his name was Iori, and he was the adopted son and trainee of Musashi Miyamoto, but couldn't learn everything from the samurai before he died. Then he took us to his house, and we got a chance to rest and learn the names of our servants. I summoned the general of Alexander the Great Ptolemy, and he told me he could shift forms based on the combat need. Then Shoto learned his servant was the legendary Chinese General Huyan Zhua, and Maple managed to summon the Fairy King Oberon as caster class. After that, we talked with Saber, but they wouldn't reveal much about themselves. I then tried to get more, but it was then a new cloaked MSTR and servant pair came to our base, and as we came out to meet them, we saw an army of zombies in garb like the 100 Years' War French army. But after battle through the night, we were able to fight them off and kill the servant, but the MSTR managed to escape. It was after that we all rested until the next day, and then went hunting until finding an MSTR and servant at a restaurant, and after a discussion over food, we found out the servant was a female incarnation of Iori's father, and our new friend started a fight with her right way. Then the MSR summoned an army of endless minions that Shoto, Maple, Gran, our servant, and I had to face. In the end, Iori killed the berserker Musashi, and Saber killed the MSTR to stop the endless waves. We won the fight, but I wasn't completely happy that the MSTR had to die. She didn't look like she wanted to fight, but had to. After that, the cloaked MSTR appeared with a brand new servant, and this time he had a bunch of clearly unstable monsters that attacked us. But this time I was able to defeat both servants and its army with ease using a spell, but the fact neither was stable made the fight easier. It was after that we had a new issue of rogue servants on the prowl. If we could recruit, then first it would limit the other master's power base, and we didn't want the MSTR that attacked the last few times to strike again. There were 6 stray servants, a rider, berserker, saber, lancer, archer, and assassin. We were able to find each with ease and convince them to join our side. The saber just liked Maple and chose her. The archer liked the duality of Shoto and picked him to team with. The berserker wanted to serve someone in need, and Gran Torino fit that bill. The lancer was won over my knowledge of his life, and finally the assassin wanted to serve Iori. Then not long after we joined back up, the rider appeared with her MSTR, a thin and busty whited-haired woman named Yu, and revealed herself as Reiku the legendary demon slayer, but this was a longer and more demonic self of the legendary slayer. After we battled both MSTR, servant, and an army of undead warriors, the servant became more demonic and changed into an avenger. It was then the mysterious Emsar returned and revealed that you was meant to be the vessel for the Holy Grail and came in with a new servant and an army of demons on his side. But with all of us teaming up, we managed to defeat the servant and his army. But the Emissar then got to you and said, "The meat's sakes gave me what I needed and the chance to reach the vessel. There have been enough rogue servants in this war to fill her more than enough." Then he looked at Reiku and asked, "You want your true power as Ushioni, right?" She replied, "I want to destroy it all." The cloaked man then revealed a long-fingered hand, then extended his nails and claws and stabbed into Yu's body. Then he said, "It's time tree of fantasy and reality appear start to make this false world real." Then white-haired woman's body vanished, and in its place was a golden cup. Then a strange tree appeared, and he struck said cup into the tree. Then he looked at my group with glowing eyes and said, "You don't have long before this tree breaks down the barrier between your world and the world of this gate, and when that happens, it's too late for all." With that, he vanished into nothing. It was then that I felt a huge wave of piranhas coming over and me, and I began to feel hot. Next thing I knew, I was mounting Shoto, and my head was in pain, and my shirt was off. The old man then said to me, "You just went crazy and likely would have popped yours and Shoto's cherry if Maple didn't bash you with her shield." I then said, "Reiku, or the tree that cloaked man, did something that made my inner dragon go insane." Then Maple told me, "You dragged Mr. Todoroki into a room and held him down at the same time the tree was producing all the monsters we had faced before, along with copies of you and strange seed monsters." Then Gran Torino said, "I don't think we have long to stop all of this. That demon woman is starting to make a storm that's making cracks in the sky." It was then we had to fight through wave after wave of monsters, until finally we made it to face Ushi Oni and the tree itself. I then said to Maple, "Make sure she can't touch me no matter that. I have a hell of a spell to win." I then chanted a long spell while Maple and Shoto were blocking the demon woman's lighting attacks from hitting me. Then it hit to unleash hellfire on the two enemies and turn them to ashes, and all that was left was the golden cup that was the Holy Grail. Maple then said, "Now that we have the Grail, the Blue Gate should release us. Unless that wasn't the Grail this was forged around, and we still have another Grail to collect." It was then Iori killed his own servant, and next the rest of the rogue servants that joined our team. After that he pointed his blades at me and shouted, "Izuku Midoriya, face me to prove who is the strongest here. I must show the world I am the strongest." With that, I knew I had to fight this man and kill him for us to escape. The sky was cracking and all the buildings were burning. It was in the middle of the battle. A voice in my head spoke and said, "I will charge that blade with the power we need to win. Just give me 5 minutes while you use another spell." After that I tried to stop rage-filled samurai with a barrage until the voice revealed time was up, and I slashed through his sword and then his body to make killing blow. After that a second Grail appeared, and with it my group, and I appeared back in our world. After that, our group was taken to the hospital, but Maple had no wounds to speak of. But the rest of us had slashes to spare, and Tenya was passed out on the bed in our room. Gran Torino then said to me, "We may have won, but that cloaked man escaped and he is likely connected to the League of Villains. Even worse, Stain likely inspired more powerful outcasts to join the League, and you kids will soon have more enemies to face." After that a dog-headed police chief came to our group and said, "Between the Blue Gate and the hero killer, your savior rank has been officially raised to A. You have made a major name for yourself with helping stop a gate so swiftly. But the win over Stain has to be blamed on Endeavor and Native." Shigaraki POV. It was after Stain was long defeating and his message was spreading like wildfire. A tall man in priest garb came to me. He had long claw-like fingernails and said to me this Blue Gate was a great success and provided some of the results I need. With 6 months to a year, I should be able to solve the problem of the saviors completely. Izuku POV. Since I was still taking time to heal after my battles in the Blue Gate, I was mostly training with my eyes. It was while doing the levels of training I could. I was told, 3 more among your ranks as Supernova appeared, all saviors this time. First we have Willem Stronghold. He attends UA's American counterpart Sky High. He inherited both parents' quirks of flight and super strength. But his savior medium is a staff, and he is known as Loner. Second there is Mizuki Suzushiro. She changed gender due to an interference of a god, but in clashing with Thor awaked her powers as savior with a power scythe and knocked Thor on his butt and cut a part out of his beard. Finally, there's Miguel O'Hara. He is a legacy hero that inherited a spider quirk from one of the first-generation users. He went to school in New York until unleashing his powerful dark magic to take down a metaphysical parasite-equipped serial killer. He will be transferring to Sky High after that. My aunt then told me part of the UA Expo is going to be another tournament with the Supernovas and the winner of the UA Games battling, but Thing Time without the limits games have. The people at Black Walnut are planning to use a 5-layer barrier and hope that's enough. With that, I knew Katsuki would be excited for the chance to fight me again and be able to use his sword, but I wasn't sure how he would do against Maple. I was barely able to defeat Iori with my healing factor, and still not sure how I would be able to use my fox power again, and still not completely sure how to use my eyes. After that, I talked to my friends about the rest of their internships. Shoto refused to say what his dad wanted him to do, but I expected it would involve dating the boy minimum and marrying him down the line. I really wanted to connect with the boy again since we were married in our past lives. While the only other member of my class to see any real action was Tsuyu. Her quirk and ability to use water magic dark arts would make her a very useful aquatic hero. In the end, I got to keep both holy grails and was planning to sell one and put it into savings and put the other one in a ceiling for later. I also knew it would be best to keep a few extra outfits in there just in case as well. Gran Torino also said that I should store a few MREs in there as well, but figure out how each meal affected me first. He mentioned bathroom issues could happen. When I got back to school, I heard about what each of my classmates did, but all they could talk about was Shoto and I dealing with the Blue Gate, and Tenya also dealing with the hero killer. I could also tell Stain was starting to go viral, and that his message may be starting to spread. After that came our first hero training class, and it was a maze race. I knew I would get to show off the fruits of my training with shoot style and my eye mastery. But I still wasn't used to fighting on unstable surfaces and didn't have time to learn chakra gripping and failed to win the test. It was after the test I caught Mineta trying to peep and finally got to try a genjutsu on him and left him in a daze for a while. After that I got to meet my mentor, and he asked me about the gate, and what I had to do. I replied with I had to kill somebody to get out of that gate. I met a man and he got lost in his own power and longing to fight, and I had to put him down. Have you ever heard that the swordsman Musashi had a son? In the world of the gate, he started good but went insane. My mentor then told me about his ultimate enemy, and that he thought he killed the man. A man only known as All for One. He then told me the origin of heroes and how said man became the leader of villains due to the fact it was buried. He then said the Nomu were made by said man, and then All for One had a brother that was the origin of the quirk, I carried one for all. I then asked how he lived so long, and my mentor replied with, I don't know how he lived so long. There are many ways to do so, but I can say, I am much like you. I am a child of Black Walnut with the blessing of a war god almost nobody remembers anymore. That blessing mostly made it easier to control the quirk before, and know in some cases heroes have to make the hard choice and kill villains. It was then I asked my mentor, you lived in the States, did you know the Wills or Miguel's families or anyone related to the other supernovas? He replied with Commander, and Jetstream met at a party for me. I also worked with one of the previous Spider-Men and the Ghost Rider before Robbie as well. But none of them had the level of power this generation has. There is a reason saviors and awakened of your generation are given all the benefits. It was after that, in homeroom class, Mr. Aizawa told us after the end of term exams in the iExpo, there will be a battle tournament between the now 11 supernovas and the winner of the first year UA Games Bakugo, and we will get the chance to clash with our very own ancient dragon and many more. That made my reincarnated Brokon sister hyped to be able to fight me and prove he is closer to my level. But I worried he would just get smashed by the Peach Bomber or Maple or any number of others before we had the chance to fight. From what I remembered about said sister, she wasn't all that special and died barely even being able to scratch a giant beast. Even her blade was nothing special compared to mine. But I vaguely remember her stealing a treasure sword to fight. Maybe Katsuki could be pushed to show that off. But as I was lost in thought, my teacher said, but after the expo is done, you won't just get to have a nice summer vacation. We will be having training camp over the summer and give each of you more chances to train like you did in with many of the heroes you trained with during your internships coming or providing notes. It was the next day that I watched a show before class about hero outfits and how much skin. On said show I learned that Midnight caused a law change. Mount Lady was debating with her, and the episode turned into a cat fight that had to be broken up. Some heroes would require special suits to work with their quirks, and I could very much see Momo getting needs her outfit changed. After that, Mr. Aizawa talked about our end-of-term exams coming, and I remembered the shadow clone trick that Kakashi taught me about and how I could use that for the written exam to both study and work out at the same time. I did pretty well on the midterm exam and expected to do even better with the shadow clone trick. Momo agreed to help the less intellect among the class. I was worried about the practical exam, but Shoto said, I know one thing, and that we won't have inside gate exams until second year, and for our gate exams they make sure they are as safe as can be. It was after thinking about that, one of the Class B students came to bother me about all that happened to me over the last few days, then tried to make me feel bad, at least until another nicer student corrected him and told us past exams were against robots. But since Classa was the first all-savior class in UA, I heard some of the Awakened Being classes had harder exams as well. It was possible they could get metaphysicals for us to fight. It was after that Katsuki declared he would do better than me both this exam and the Expo Battle Challenge. But he never met Maple, and I knew they would likely stop him in his tracks. It was then we blazed through the written exams and soon learned the practical exams would be against the heroes' teachers themselves. It was then the principal came out and revealed the exam would be 2 students against 1 hero, Katsuki, and I would have to face my mentor All Might. The first matches would be Ijiro Kirishima and Rikido Sato versus Cementos and Fumikage and Tsuyu versus Ectoplasm. To pass the exam, we either had handcuffed the teacher or had one member escape the stage. I had to guess the second part had to do with the fact we had to deal with the villain invasion. We were also locked out of using our savior skills as well. The last thing was our pro-hero teachers had limiter as well to make the match more fair for us. Ochako and I watched the first match, and my 2 classmates went for the frontal approach, and I soon figured out. The 2 had limits that the teacher didn't, and were soon overwhelmed. I could tell they should have run away instead of fighting. After that, the next fight came, and it was the 2 animal-type fighters against our ghost-making teacher. I knew both were smarter than the last 2 fighters. The 2 started out good as Miss Artoria, and Recovery Girl revealed to us that the one at the biggest disadvantage was the big head boy. He was a better long-range fighter, and the Frog Girl was a good support for him. Soon enough, our ghostly teacher made a giant copy that Reveal provided a challenge while the 2 students were caught. As the fight came to a close, I learned Tsuyu had more frog traits as she won the battle by cuffing the teacher. Kakashi POV. As the first exams were completed, I made entrees for the first 2 pairs in the exams. Ijiro Kirishima. Quirk. Hardening Skin Carbon. Savior Type. Light Arts with Tower Shield with Spike at the end. Past Life Unknown, but has time limits to how long he can keep skin hard, and weapons may have more to it. Think Izuku is cute, but shows more affection for the pink girl in class. Rikido Sato. Quirk. Sugar Rush covers sugar into power. Savior Type Light Arts gun that recharges bullets with prana. Past Life Unknown. Quirk limited to amount of sugar he can have on hand, and weapon needs time to reload. Thinks Izuku is cute, but doesn't have the confidence to get close and gets more scared with her deeds. Fumikage Tokoyami. Quirk. Shadow has sentient shadow monster tied to his own shadow. Savior Type. Dark Arts Earth Magic Specialization. Past Life Unknown. He can use his dark arts to help his quirk, but it has weaknesses to light and get harder to control with more darkness. He has a level of affection for Izuku, but not romantic. Tsuyu Azui. Quirk, frog, and can do things that many different frogs can do. Savior Type Dark Arts Water. She is an expert at water combat overall, but has a weakness to extreme cold and dryness like frogs. She is good but lacks pure power, but makes up for it with smarts and ability to be flexible to fit teammates. She pretty much just considers Izuku a friend. Izuku POV. The next person to be tested was Tenya and Mashireo against Power Loader, and the 2 battled through a dirt pit until Tenya launched the tailed boy to the escape area and passed the exam. Next was Shoto and Momo against our teacher Eraserhead. It was more a close-range battle with our teacher using a sneak attack to get Shoto. He was caught nearly right away and made it so Shoto couldn't get out of the bonds easily. The major issue was that Momo was running scared of our teacher. She wasn't as confident fighting without her quirk. From what I could tell of our past lives, Shoto wasn't the best idea person in either life. As my former wife, she still needed my strategist to help in battle. But once he managed to get Momo to calm down, Momo revealed she had made flash grenades as she freed Shoto. Soon enough, Shoto made an ice wall and set up 2 more mixed traps to finally catch the teacher and pass the test. But soon enough, we figured the teacher got spooked, and they too were able to pass due to that. After that, Ochako and Yuga started their battle against 13, and after the blonde boy said something I couldn't hear embarrass my friend, she went into a kind of berserker martial arts state. I had a feeling it was a kind of partial memory awakening, and she used that berserk state mixed with martial arts to bring down the space-suited hero with ease. The girl would need to find a way to use that in combat. She was a dark arts type, but I had a feeling by mixing some ninja training in with her magic could produce good results. Next was Denki and Mina against the principal, and the lab experiment principal was using a crane and advanced math to set up chain reactions and traps to seal the two away and make them fail the test. Mina nearly came up with a solution, but they couldn't outsmart the principal. After that came Kyoka and Koji against Present Mike, and it was a battle of sound quirks. But soon enough the pair found a mix of insects and a counter sound to finally win, with a mass of ant bites making an opening wide enough to get through the teacher. The next battle was Mizo and Toru against Snipe, and they ended up using full stealth and Toru's shapely body to win the battle. I had a decent idea of her size, but mostly knew from her underwear left behind. I think the girl would likely need a special suit so that she wouldn't have to be naked. It was then the final battle before mine came, and it was Mineta and Zero against Midnight, and the tape boy was pretty much out of the battle. I was shocked that the short boy was able to pull off a win using all the tricks his sticky ball could do to get around. He clearly had the smarts, but would likely need his personality adjusted before becoming a full hero. But next was going to be Katsuki, and I against my mentor All Might, and I knew Gran Torino likely told the #1 hero about my eye training. Katsuki POV. I didn't want to work with Izuku due to the fact I knew she surpassed me. I knew I might get the chance to face her again in the Eye Expo, but I also wanted to prove I was stronger by defeating All Might. I wanted to prove I could stand next to her. It was while Izuku wanted to work with me that All Might stormed in and was trying to avoid looking into Izuku's eyes. I knew they were special, but didn't know how much she advanced. I heard she helped stop the hero killer and helped clear the blue gate with that icy hot boy. Knowing they both got better made me feel even worse. I wanted to get better, but wasn't allowed to train much. I tried to use a stun grenade, but when what spooked the hero was more, Izuku's eyes changed, and he just stopped me with one hand. But I was able to blast him a little bit. It was when we tried to do different things. We just crashed into each other. I could tell Izuku was almost too scared to fight the hero of peace. But I wanted to fight, and kept getting knocked around. I was when All Might was about to take me out. Izuku saved me and dragged me to safety. She then tried to talk sense into me. I knew she was stronger, like I knew Fraga was stronger. In our past lives, he was a force I couldn't surpass, and we both died with me never able to surpass him. I was stronger as a kid, but as every other way she had gotten stronger. But it was as Izuku wanted to run, we came up with a way to pass the exam. She used my glove to make an opening, and then we both ran. She was also able to use her eyes to make a quirk illusion as well. We were very close to escaping, and Izuku seemed to know something about the hero. It was like she knew about All Might's limits. But at the last minute I came up with the trick to throw Izuku to the goal, and then make an opening for her. I then pushed myself to my limits while Izuku was hurt, and seeming to heal. I kept fighting and breaking my body to give her the chance to win. I wanted to scream, I loved her, but I whited out first. Izuku POV. With Katsuki out, I was about to run but managed to set a Genjutsu triggered by a punch and then ran off with Katsuki's body to the exit. I knew my illusion, and All Might hitting his limit would give me the pass. I just hoped I could save my friend from himself. It was after we passed, Katsuki was still out, and I met All Might. I was still healing, and he said to me, I think that fight took at least 30 minutes off my max time in my super state. You better understand that the iExpo event will be much harder than this. Bakugo likely won't last long in the battle the event. His gifts as a savior pale compared to yours, and his quirk isn't much compared to many of them either. I replied, I am not sure if I could pierce Maple's defense, and I know Katsuki would do even worse. It was during mine and Katsuki's recovery. Hanabi came and did some of her tricks with her eyes and special touch to aid us. She then told me 3 dangerous people named Toga, Dabi, and Twice have moved in the direction of that hand. He is good at hiding, but I spotted them in his orbit. The issue is that Shadow Guy is good at getting away faster than I can make chase. Be on the lookout no matter what. It was the next day. I learned we would all go to the training camp, but only the top 4, and I would go to the expo. But the failures would go to the training camp and have extra lessons at camp. But before either event, we would go shopping as a class. At the mall, I couldn't avoid attention with all I did recently. Being one of the supernovas made me an object of attention. But it was one person that really surprised me. The handman found me and revealed his name and face. He said he was Shigaraki and said, "My ability can't be resisted by savior defensive skills." He muttered about Stain, and them left me. He told me how he hated Stain, but liked what he brought to the cause. It was as Ochako returned, he said, "See you soon. There is more in the dark to come after you, and I will kill All Might." After that I called the police and had to sit and wonder when the man would come back, if it would be at the camp or the expo or somewhere else. Kakashi POV. As the tests were done, I knew I needed to profile the rest of the class. Yuga Aoyama. Quirk. Naval Laser. Savior Type. Light Arts User Hand Blades. Past Life. Unknown. While Beam is strong, is carries serious weakness from being too connected to digestive functions. He seems not completely trustworthy, but nothing can be proved. He is curious and admires Izuku, but doesn't love her. Mizo Shoji. Quirk. Body Replication. Savior Type. Dark Arts Electricity. Past Life. Unknown. His quirk seems better for sensing that combat. He admires Izuku, but like others on more romantic levels. Toru Hagakure. Quirk. Invisibility. Savior Type. Light Arts Rapier Sword. Past Life. Unknown. She needs a way to use her quirk and wear clothes, but would likely need someone else to help solve those issues. Her ability can also be used to reflect and redirect light-based attacks, but at the cost of being fully visible for a short time. She is friends with Izuku, but that's it. Kyokujiro. Quirk. Earphone Jack. Savior Type. Light Arts Battle Axe Guitar. Past Life. Unknown. Her quirk needs a device to plug into, but project body sounds into attacks and can counter other sound-based attacks. She can also plug into her guitar for use for range attacks. She seems to like Izuku, but only as a friend. Koji Koda. Quirk. Oni Voice. Savior Type. Dark Arts support magic with horn weapons to further enhance. Past Life. Unknown. He can control animals, but needs them to be in a range. His abilities seem to be best for support and rescue missions. He fears and admires Izuku, but that's it. Denki Kaminari. Quirk. Electricity Control. Savior Type. Light Arts Spear with Chains. Past Life. Unknown. He has a strong quirk, but overuse causes his brain to short out and leaves him too stupid to fight for long periods of time. He likes Izuku's body, but is too intimidated to approach her. Mina Ishido. Quirk. Acid. Savior Type. Dark Arts Wind. Her acid is variable and can have many uses, but she must keep herself coated to protect herself. She is friendly to Izuku, but likes someone else romantically. Minoru Mineta. Quirk. Sticky Ball. Savior Type. Light Arts Staff. He has a keen mind but is affected by dwarfism and fear, and both affect him. He lusts after Izuku, but is scared of her. Hantashiro. Quirk. Tape. Savior Type. Dark Arts Gravity. His quirk is best for long range and mobile combat. He lusts after Izuku and is friendly to her. Mashireo Ojiro. Quirk. Tail. Savior Type. Dark Arts Self-Boasts. He is an expert martial artist with extra tail limbs to fight with. He stays away from Izuku due to fear. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Was Naruto and Sasuke's Secret Daughter. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to michelous for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on fanfiction.net for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zen and Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you soon in the next video.